How many of you have spent time as a child in a rural village? Raise your hand. In a village, in a rural village, when you were small. Quite a lot of people. This is me and my family, near from my father's village. As many of you, we used to spend our holidays there. Have you ever thought that we might be the last generations having parents that belong to a village? This is the old Mequinensa, my father's village. Around the 60s, a dam was built above the riverside, and the by then inhabitants of Mequinensa were forced to move to a new village. They were given two choices: having a new house in the new industrialized Mequinensa, or getting money and having a flat in a city nearby. My father's family took the second choice, but they would never settle down in Barcelona, at least emotionally. This is the old Mequinensa today. The village, the old village, was never sunk because of the dam, but it was fully demolished in the last few years. Today, I'm going to explain a story of return. Return to our past, to our villages. Yes, right now, when technology and artificial intelligence are threatening the human race. Today, I'm going to explain how and why I think technology can actually save all villages, such as Mequinensa, from vanishing forever. What happened to my father's family wasn't an isolated thing. There are more than 3,000 abandoned villages in Spain, and rural depopulation is now affecting 4,000 villages. This is also happening in Italy, where there's 20,000 ghost villages. And you may be thinking, oh, this just happened in Italy and Spain because, you know, dictatorship, so on. No way. In China, there are nearly 1 million ghost villages and 5,000 in Japan. And where is everybody still going? I mean, where? Guess where? Yes. We are still piling up in big cities. And most technologies are reinforcing a non-controlled gentrification process. Who knows what gentrification means? So gentrification, to simplify it, is the raised interest towards a specific location. The good things of gentrification are business development and the attraction of new entrepreneurs to that area. But without control, gentrification leads to real estate speculation and the forced migration of locals. Does this ring a bell? Barcelona. Property owners are literally kicking out from their homes long-term tenants. And instead of this, they are hosting short-term vacation-based guests. Every day is more difficult to reside in the cities most of us work and live. So maybe the question more than where is why? Why are we still piling up in cities? Especially why, when nature doesn't just make us happier and healthier, but also smarter, as science confirms. Several universities in the USA have proven, with groups of people spending 4 days in nature, that they have increased by 50% their problem-solving and creativity capabilities. So this is a fact. Nature, and thus rural areas, enables productivity, creativity, focus, high performance, and moments of flow. This is because our lateral thinking and left brain capabilities are reinforced out there. So this means that you get much more things done in few days in nature than in one full month in your office. Sure, that's why most scientific breakthroughs happen out in nature. Every day there are more companies and individuals, myself, that are using nature as a vehicle for reconnecting with ourselves, but also for boosting businesses. Scientists are still figuring out why nature works so well for us. But I think the answer is simpler. At the end, we come from nature. Our parents, as I said before, and grandparents grew up in small communities, in villages, surrounded by nature. Nature was, for most of us, home some time ago. And if you think of it, nature is us. And also, why should we go on working and living in cities? Mostly now that we can work from wherever there's good internet connection. Mostly now as well, when we are quitting more than ever our jobs, reinventing ourselves professionally, starting up new businesses, failing and rising up again. Did you know that 90% of productive people worldwide is not happy with their job? Did you know it? Some of us are already living and working in the remote area. This means that we mix work and vacation and life and leisure, and we often do so in beautiful places, natural locations, and rural areas. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not envisioning a horde of aliens invading villages with their laptops. A bunch of very interesting people and entrepreneurs are already abandoning cities, yes, abandoning cities, and going back to their home villages, relocating their businesses, starting up new projects based on the local economy, or opening up co-working spaces, shared offices, that at the same time are attracting other young professionals to the villages. Knowing it or not knowing it, what those are doing, those entrepreneurs are mixing tradition and technology for revitalizing their rural hometowns. You might be thinking, is this an utopia? Well, no, it's not. Just to name a few of them. In the other side of the wall, Steve and his team has been managing, from the last 7 years, one of the top 10 co-working spaces by Forbes. They have inspired a very international professional community in the middle of the island of Bali, in a rural village, and the seaside, is not nearby. Near from here, in Tarragona, Riba-roja d'Ebre, a very pioneer and young government launched one of the very first co-working spaces with fiber optic internet in a village nearly 6 years ago. And in the north of Catalonia, in Girona, Axel, Albert, and a group of thriving entrepreneurs and young families that's growing over time have chosen L'Escala and villages around for living and growing their businesses. They are about to launch a co-working space that would gather creative professionals and makers from the area and from cities nearby. At this point, I would be asking myself, how can we take part of this rural connected return? What if we start by those nearly 1 million empty houses that there are in rural areas in Spain? Some of those empty houses are located in very convenient villages, not just beautiful, but also accessible with fiber optic internet, business incubators, co-working spaces, kindergartens, primary school, paddle courts, swimming pools, and so on. But most of all, some of those empty houses are located in villages that have already been chosen by some of those interesting entrepreneurs I told you about before, like Axel or Albert. So why waiting for holiday or weekend to go to the village? Imagine that you can keep on living in a city, in Barcelona. But you can combine your time there with periods of time with family or team in one of those entrepreneurial villages. Imagine that you don't want to move to a village forever, but you want to try out this rural connected thing to see how it feels. Let's say you feel somehow attracted by the idea of having a second house in a village, but you don't want to commit to anything permanent. And most of all, you don't want to have to pay for a second mortgage. You might not even be paying for the first one. So let's take, for instance, one old house in the village of Riba-roja d'Ebre. It is a very authentic and beautiful village house. Of course, it needs some renovation costs. Instead of yourself acquiring the house, let's keep its ownership in its current owner's hands, just in case you change your mind. So instead of buying this house and renovating it, buy your own for a considerable amount of money, you could share the renovation costs with other co-users, 3 co-users, let's say. And by this, and by covering a discounted yearly access fee, you and those co-users would be able to enjoy this fully renovated, authentic village house in Riba-roja. All right, but let's say you don't want having to choose because you don't know the place and you are not really sure, but most of all, we like to move around, don't we? So as a co-user of this house in Riba-roja d'Ebre, you could become the co-user of a multi-property system for village houses. This means you wouldn't just have access to this village house in Riba-roja, but to as many village houses as others have contributed to renovate in a number of villages that would be growing, growing, and growing over time. It turns out that it's precisely a distributed, transparent, and cooperative technology that can make this possible. A technology that would enable a housing system that would prioritize the use versus the ownership of those properties. This means instead of managing the ownership of the properties, this technology would simply distribute the right to access these empty houses in a non-speculative way. The goal of this technology would be filling up empty village houses throughout the year, allowing its users to collaboratively renovate them, rebuild them, and inhabit them, making someday possible to collaboratively rebuild fully ruined and abandoned villages by its new co-inhabitants. This technology would actually enable our return to villages, our return to past, for regaining our freedom of movement, for doing more of what we like, how we like it, but most of all, where we like to do it. And all this while contributing to a good cause, reviving our villages for a better living. This is a dream some of us are already living in. Would you join us? Thank you.